This is Retirement Keys with Anthony Kangemi from Crescent City Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Anthony provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Keys with your host, Anthony Kangemi.
All right, welcome to another show of Retirement Keys. My name's Anthony Kangemi, and I will be your host. We have our spectacular co-host, as we do every Sunday morning, Mr. Tony Shore. We absolutely could not do the show without Tony. So, Tony, thank you so much for your research. Thank you for your professionalism, and we really appreciate you helping us with the show.
Oh, no problem. I love being here each week with you, Anthony. We have fun, and I always enjoy talking with you. There's a lot going on out there. There's always more to learn, and I know you do this day in and day out with your clients and the people you meet with, and you love hearing from people that listen to the radio show or the podcast. So, Anthony, I know that we have a great topic today, but before we jump into it, how have you been? What have you been doing? Hanging out with the boys and the family?
Pretty much, Tony. You know, I have 4 boys, and Anthony just finished UL. He got his finance degree, and we have him here now. And so that's going pretty well. The old father-son dynamic, I don't know, but so far so good,
That's
I guess.
Good. Oh, I'm sure it's great.
It's amazing how, at 22 years old, you could know so much.
He knows it all, I bet, right?
I mean, I can't find a thing he doesn't know.
Or at least he thinks he knows it all, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's good. And then, they're all doing well, and then all the way down to the youngest, Sam, who'll be 13 here, coming up in a couple of months. And he's doing, they're all doing great. They all,
excellent.
I tell you, we have 4 boys, same, parents, same household, same, and they're all together different, every one of them.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. I mean, they've got the same biological parents. They grew up in the same household, same, everything. And night and day, every one of them.
Yep.
So I don't know what that means, other than, when people talk about their kids and grandkids and how different they can be. I mean, it's true. I see it firsthand. They're all individuals, and they all have their own thoughts, ideas, gifts, and it's good though.
Yeah. Yeah, that is good. That is good. And I know you're keeping busy there at the office too, aren't you? Katie, the staff, you guys have been really busy.
We really have, We're doing a lot of we're doing a lot of training events, webinars online. As you know, we did one on the taxes and the power of when, which was great. That was last month's webinar. And as a matter of fact, it was such a, we had many folks, clients, and just really a lot of people just in the community that listen to our radio show that were not able to make the actual event, the live event. Were, recorded it rather, and are sending it out. But I mean, people are really have been very, very interested in learning about taxes as it relates to retirement and when they should pay taxes and what's the most tax efficient, distribution strategy in retirement, which is so important. I mean, we talk so much about investments and rates of return and market volatility. You hear that, on every corner, and which is true. It is important, obviously, but also taxes are very important, and when you're going to pay the taxes and at what rate and all of this.
Yeah.
And so, that was a great, well-received webinar we did.
Yeah, that's good. And we've done a couple of shows recently on taxes and planning for taxes and planning for taxes in retirement. So listeners, you can go to the website, and you can look at that, and you can see, go to the show page and listen to past shows, and you'll see the titles. We've done a couple in the past few months on taxes and taxes in retirement. But today we're talking about something completely different. Well, somewhat different anyway. We're talking about risk, right?
Yeah, we are. And, more specifically, yeah, Tony, and we're talking about an article actually that into last year, Kiplinger put out, which for our listeners, Kiplinger is a financial resource for not only financial advisors, but for really just all over the country. They're a national publication, and for individuals, for financial planning firms. So Kiplinger's a pretty big name in the financial services industry. They did an article end of last year that I'd like to touch on, and as you'll see here, I mean the name of the article, I say, pretty much says it all in terms of what we'll be talking about. But the article was written end of October of last year, and the title of the article is "The 7 Big Retirement Risks to Avoid." 7 biggest retirement risks to avoid. So Kiplinger put this article out, and they had one of their resources do the research, and came up with these 7 really top concerns that people should be thinking about and risk as it relates to retirement. So I thought for today's show, Tony, we'd touch on those 7.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. And I know that, these lead into some topics we've touched on before, but it's really important to know how to minimize that risk, especially the closer we get to retirement, and then, of course, in retirement. So what's number 1 on the list? What's the first thing you wanted to talk about?
Well, the first risk that they have in the article is longevity risk, and they talk about life expectancy and how it's increased from in 1950, average life expectancy was 68 years old, and as of today, we know a male, and they go on to say after COVID, life expectancy actually decreased, but retirees are living longer. Estimates that couples both reaching age 65, so couples reaching age 65 has a 50% chance that one of the spouses, so the surviving spouse, will live to the age of 93. So there's a 50% chance that one of the two, that 65-year-old or older couple, will live, one of them will live to 93, and a 25% chance that one of the spouse will live to 98.
Wow.
So we know with our, with the work that we do with required minimum distributions and just using Social Security's average life expectancy, we know just average, we have females living 83 and a half on average, and males at 81. That's just average. And then Kiplinger goes on to say in their article that at least 50% of the time, one of the spouses will live to 93. So, at the end of the day, longevity risk, which is just simply we're going to live, we're living longer. And of course, there's reasons for that. But we are living longer. And so this longevity risk is really talking about outliving our money, and or needing health care in the future because we're living longer, and the cost of that. So they go on to talk about, people outliving their money, and because they're living longer and they weren't planning to live that long, and also the healthcare cost associated, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah, and longevity is interesting. You know what I like to say? The good news is we're living longer. The bad news is we're living longer, right? Because you need that much more money and more planning to, not outlive your money and live a healthy and happy retirement. That's the key. Well, we're living longer. So my grandfather lived to 101 and was active up until almost 2 months before his death, he was active. So,
Oh yeah. Wow.
pretty incredible. There is longevity out there. You see it happening more and more. So I think that's a big one. That's a really big one.
It really is. And, the article even goes on to talk about inflation, and how
Oh
things,
yeah.
and, we feel this even, as we speak. I mean, you can't go to the grocery store today or, without scratching your head and saying, my goodness, and then of course, down where we're at, Tony, insurance rates, have gone through the roof with the storms we've seen down here in South Louisiana. So, the inflation risk with longevity, people are living longer. And then if their income is not keeping up with inflation, and then, of course, the length of time that, we're living, it can really wreak havoc on a retirement plan. One of the things I can tell you that we do here at our firm is we plan to age 100. So when we run these retirement plans, we are looking for these assets to run to 100 and even beyond. We want to adjust for inflation. We certainly need to do that. And we need to consider, as we talked about a little while ago, required minimum distributions, making sure that, we're drawing out what we're supposed to. We're not over withdrawing prior to RMDs, and we're not under withdrawing, which just simply, Tony, when we're building out retirement income plans, we want to make sure that we're utilizing the tax brackets, we're tax efficient. But then when everything defaults to required minimum distribution, you don't see a big spike up, but you also don't see a big decrease either. So you're trying to dial that in to where everything transitions really nicely. But yeah, longevity risk, inflation, things are costing more. Healthcare costs certainly are more. You're more susceptible to healthcare costs as you get older. So that's a big one. Longevity risk, I would say, is a big one there, Tony.
Oh yeah, that's a really big one. And then you talked about inflation. That's the next one, right? And we touched on that.
We did. It talks about inflation, and they go on to say that, inflation is the decrease of purchasing power due to the increase of prices.
Yeah.
And then they give us the average inflation rate since 1914, which they say is 3.24% annually, is the average inflation rate since then. And give some, pro tips on how you can hedge against inflation. And of course, they're talking about, which we use in our portfolios, tips, which are Treasury inflation protected securities. So there's certain types of investments that do a real good job and hedge against inflation. But yes, the cost of things are going up. I remember my dad saying, that the first home, the house I grew up in Harahan on Sedgefield, I think they paid $32,000 or $33,000 for it. But now you can't buy a car, a new car for that.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
yeah. And that same house, little 1,800 square foot, I think it was 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-house, nice house in Harahan, little house on Sedgefield, is now I saw it up for sale. I was curious, because I grew up there. I saw it up for sale, and they want like $300,000 for this house. Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's crazy. And it's amazing, from 30,000 to 300,000. Yeah, there's inflation. It's a real thing. And I know you have things and strategies to help your clients deal with inflation, and you use growth. You make sure that when you create a financial plan for someone, Anthony, that you have growth in there to keep up with inflation during retirement, right? For retirement income.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to consider that. I mean, things are going to cost more. So as we live longer, so it's kind of like, the perfect storm if you're not thinking of that in retirement planning. If we're living longer, and healthcare costs are on a rise, and typically it's the older people that need more healthcare, have more healthcare needs, and then things are costing more, and inflation's on the rise. You have to have a retirement distribution strategy that takes all that into account, so you can live in retirement, enjoy your retirement, and do the things that you want to do. I mean, I would say, what a shame it would be to have worked all of your life, saved, raised kids, paid off debt, you know, and did all the things that you knew to do to get there, and then not have a well-designed retirement income plan that accomplishes what you needed to accomplish throughout your retirement. And so, so inflation is a biggie. And then, as we said, longevity is a big one. And then they go into number three, Tony, which we touched on a little bit here in the beginning, which is tax rate risks, and how taxes fit into your retirement plan.
Okay, so the next big risk in retirement is taxes. And a lot of people, Anthony, think, hey, I'm not going to have to worry about taxes in retirement. I'm going to be in a much lower tax bracket. But oftentimes that's not true, is it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I'll tell you another myth, Tony, is people that have retirement accounts that are pre-tax. Let's say your 401k that was pre-tax, or an IRA, or a 403b, some type of retirement plan was tax deferred and was pre-tax. The question isn't, will I have to pay taxes on this money? You will, or somebody will when it passes on. So taxes have to be paid. The question is, at what rate? At what rate?
Okay.
And so managing your tax rates, and what I started to say about a misconception is, a lot of times, because of these pre-tax dollars and people recognizing, oh, if I pull money out, I'm going to have to pay taxes, so I'll just defer if I don't need the money. The problem there is what we mentioned a little while ago about required minimum distributions. When you get into these RMDs, then all of a sudden, it's not a question of whether you want to pull money out or not. You have to. You're forced to. So managing your distribution strategy before required minimum distributions, so you can, yes, pay the taxes on the money that comes out, but doing it in a very efficient way, more intentional way. And that, Tony, when you look at the overall tax consequences over a person's lifetime, I mean, you would be surprised at the tax savings that could be had by just having a very efficient tax distribution strategy.
Yeah, have that strategy or plan in place, but you need to work with a financial services professional like yourself. So that's taxes. What's another big one that we need to be looking out for?
Well, number four, and we've talked a little bit about this, but number four is the healthcare cost risk. They say that besides long-term care, healthcare includes Medicare Part B premiums. We have drug plans. We have long-term care plans, and
co-pays and deductibles. You still have healthcare costs in retirement, even with Medicare, is what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Whether you're on original AB Medicare or you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, you have co-pays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs, premiums to pay, and the like. So, yeah, there's definitely, on the medical side of your healthcare costs, medical hospitals, doctors, you have co-pays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket. Then on the drugs, you have the Part D drug plans. They have co-pays and out-of-pockets and donut holes. If you hit the donut hole, then you're on your own, depending on the cost of medicines. Then you've got dental and vision. I mean, which Medicare, frankly, doesn't do a ton for. But you've got the dental and vision costs. So, yeah, you have medical costs there, which need to be considered and calculated. And then, of course, that long-term care cost. And that is once you are discharged, let's say from a hospital, and you go home to recover, or assisted living, or a nursing home, or even a date, one of those care centers where, I have a client right now who's really on the I don't know about the onsets of dementia. I mean, it's kind of, a little further along even. And, with the son, they bring him to a place during the day while the son can work, and then he picks him up in the evening. So they have these centers that are real good, with activities and stuff. But this is all considered long-term care, Tony. Again, assisted living, these retirement communities, nursing homes, home care, where people need sitters to come at the house and help with what's called activities of daily living, ADLs, feeding, dressing, bathing, toileting, transferring from the bed to the chair, incontinence. There's 6 of them. So what I'm saying is, when you think of the healthcare umbrella, yes, you have the medical costs, Medicare, Part A and B, Medicare Advantage, drugs, dental and vision, but then you have the long-term care side of it.
Obviously, these retirement risks that you need to avoid are huge, and healthcare and long-term care. We've talked a lot about those before, but those are big expenses in retirement. But I know as far as risk management, there are others, lifetime income risk. When we start talking about our portfolios in the stock market and the retirement income, you have a tool that I want to talk about and let our listeners have an opportunity to get a hold of, and that's the color of money risk analysis, right?
It is, Tony. So the color of money risk analysis looks at really 3 colors, red, yellow, and green. And so it looks at the types of investments that we're invested in, and it codes these investments by color. So, for instance, the green investments are investments that really don't take, not a very little risk, if you will. I mean, no stock market risk. I mean, this would be investments like treasury bills, or we talked about those tips a little while ago, treasury inflation protected securities, CDs, bank CDs, money market accounts, government bonds, certain types of annuities that have these more safe, green. So these investments are coded in green. Then there's the yellow investments, and these are investments that are managed in the stock market, but they're more conservative portfolios, and they're professionally managed. And we call that yellow money. And then the red money is, just money invested in, whether it be in the stock market or alternative investments, but really nobody keeping an eye on them, not actively managed and looked at, just really invested in the market, bought some funds, bought some stocks, bought some REITs or alternative investments, and nobody's really keeping an eye on them. And we certainly call that red money. So, what we're looking for is, how are we invested, and where does the money need to come from when we start taking income? So obviously, money that needs to be generating income in retirement in the short term, let's say anywhere from 1 to the first 10 years of retirement, you really shouldn't have those buckets of money invested very aggressively, because that money needs to be called on. The time horizon on that money is shorter.
So, Anthony, how can our listeners get a hold of you to take that color of money risk analysis, to see where they're at, get a second opinion, and get started on a financial plan, a retirement income plan that is going to factor in these risks?
Absolutely. So right on our website, we have our 15-minute retirement resource call. All you have to do is go to the website, click on the box, and say, yes, I would like to have a retirement resource call. It's a 15-minute call with me. We will chat about your situation, answer any questions you have, and certainly we are able to get you that color of money risk analysis We also have a retirement map that we want to discuss with you that takes all of this and puts it into one retirement map for you. So the first step, if you will, is go to the website at crescentcityretirement.com, click on the little Calendly link and say, hey, I'd like to schedule that 15-minute retirement resource call. Any question you have about anything as it relates to your retirement, your estate and legacy plan, your tax plan, your investment strategy, your income plan, your healthcare plan, any questions you have, click the link to schedule that 15-minute retirement resource call, and we'll answer the questions. If we can't answer the question, we'll certainly get the answer. We have many resources, obviously. So if we don't have the exact answer, if it's something that we need to research, we'll do that for you and then send you the information, chapter and verse, exactly where the source is coming from.
Excellent.
So we just want to be a good resource for the community. So please go to crescentcityretirement.com, click the link, schedule that 15-minute call.
All right. Sounds great, Anthony. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Retirement Keys with our host, Anthony Congemi. Thank you for listening to Retirement Keys. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, please contact Anthony Congemi at Crescent City Retirement Group. Call 504-828-2171 or visit the website at crescentcityretirement.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.